All right, and we are live here this morning on a Friday after
Oh gosh,
Friday
it is
morning.
Friday. Yeah,
Yes, it is
look
a
at
good
that.
thing.
Takeoff, baby. That's what it's all about.
Yes. So, welcome everyone. We're gearing up for a Friday show. My name is Rich Ross, and I'm joined as always by my colleague Chris Gomez. Hey, Chris.
Yep, good to see you. It's one of those things where I knew it was Friday, but it's going into President's Day weekend, and so it's a busy tournament weekend, and our
Mm-hmm.
family's going to be spending time at hockey rinks, and the girls are going to try to bring home a tournament championship this weekend. We'll see what happens. Most importantly,
Cool.
we'll have fun.
That's the important part. But speaking
then
of having fun,
yeah.
Scooter's having some fun in the background there.
Yeah, sometimes he makes an appearance, and sometimes when the show starts, he's super excited. Other times he just wants to be part of the conversation. So let's see
Yep.
how that goes today.
Well,
But
he
good
has opinions.
morning to everybody. It's good to see you all.
Awesome. Yes, good to see everybody. Let us love the engagement and interaction. So let us know where you're watching from. Drop us a note in the chat. Interaction is definitely important as we do this live together with everybody. But as we're definitely going to get into the kind of that next step of TagzApp. We got it working, and I've checked that repo back up into the site up on GitHub. But we want to see if we can get it working on Chris's machine and kind of see what that pain point might look like. So we're going to go through and do that. That's how we're going to spend our day to day. But before we get into that, I think one of the things that we kind of want to talk about is something that we blog post we saw that came out earlier this week, and that talks a bit about the future vision of .NET 9. We just had .NET 8 came out in November with .NET Conf, the final version of it, and we're starting to think about, or the team is starting to think about what .NET 9 looks like. Boy, that's a tongue twister.
Yeah, .NET 9. That's so. I think on this channel, especially folks who've been following us a long time, we did something a little unusual for us last year. We dove into the release candidates. I think we jumped in at release candidate 1, but it might have even been the last preview. I don't remember exactly. And part of the reason was I was personally interested in how the whole Blazor United thing, which ended up turning into what we have in Blazor .NET 8. I was so interested in how that was going to turn out after the early announcements that I really personally, and I think you did too, Rich, wanted to jump in earlier.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that was a pretty successful thing, mainly because it seemed like there were a lot of other developers out there who wanted to see it too.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we had some of our highest engagement ever. And so I don't know that .NET 9 Preview 1 is going to be the place where we do that, but it's interesting to know that here we go, the yearly cycle starting again.
Yeah, I think there was a lot of buzz when it came to some of the new features that were happening with Blazor. Blazor was getting really close to that, being able to have that ability, the auto capability, right?
Yep.
WASM and server-side rendering, and have everything just kind of work together. And so there was a lot of enthusiasm. I think that's why we dove in too, was to kind of say, okay, there's definitely some interest. Let's try and see what we can do to help that along.
Yeah, right. So I don't know, were you bringing up what was posted on the 13th? So this is Friday, Tuesday.
Yeah.
So on Tuesday, the .NET team posted a blog post.
There we go.
And here it is.
Yeah.
Our vision for .NET 9. Yeah. So what's interesting, .NET 9 Preview 1 is out.
Mm-hmm. You can get that here.
What is in it is not here, but that's okay. It's the first preview, so I don't think the expectation is that it's going to have a ton of stuff. But one thing I did read, not in this blog post. Okay, so the blog post is great. Down at the bottom, when they say try .NET 9 Preview 1, that would zoom. We don't have to head out that way, but that'll zoom you out to GitHub. Actually, a README on GitHub. I'm sorry, that's not true. A discussion on GitHub, and Rich Lander had an interesting comment where he said, we're publishing preview content in a new way with a greater focus on docs and release notes. And I do remember in the .NET 8 cycle, a lot of what happened came in the form of these blog posts.
Right.
On dev blogs, .microsoft.com, the official .NET and ASP.NET blog posts. If you start following those links through, what you'll see instead this time around is you're going to end up on learn.microsoft.com, the official documentation home, and you'll end up on a what's new in .NET 9 post, which again, they've just started off with the early stuff, some improvements in serialization, some improvements in link, and you know, we're not talking about a ton, but it seems that what Rich is pointing out is they're going to try to get the docs more complete at the jump.
Right.
So,
which I'm sure is helpful for, you know, making it much smoother to get from, hey, we've released and there's just this ecosystem around to get everybody up and running on it, which is awesome.
Right. So I don't know that there's a whole lot to look through. What kind of can be interesting is when some of the, so along with the new version of .NET, at least what we've seen the last several years, we'll also see a new C#, I suppose. And it can get exciting when those things start to work. The IDE support is usually a little behind.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Well, speaking of which, there's also an updated version of Visual Studio. It's now 17.9. And then the preview channel has 17.10 going as well. So those are other blog posts that are in the dev blog site. But I think much like last year, we dove into Blazor, and it was fun doing that. Where I think, at least for .NET 9, where I'm interested in getting in and starting to play around with the preview stuff is kind of what we have in here with the .NET Aspire. Being a cloud architect and focusing on Azure, and .NET Aspire does not only cover Azure, right? Azure is one of the places that you can deploy to, but it's the idea of being able to, if I understand it correctly, being able to bring in essentially those cloud infrastructure components and being able to, that was just a link to all the blog posts about it. Never mind. Sorry, it's not what I thought it was. I thought it was more like here's the definition of it. But the idea of being able to bring in a Redis cache or bring in your storage capabilities, whatever it might be, so that it makes it easier for me to start developing locally and then ultimately move all that up to my cloud environment, which could be Azure because there's a lot of hooks in there to do that, but it doesn't have to be.
Yeah. No, we haven't done any .NET Aspire content yet, but I think it'd be interesting to try and apply it. And I think the approach that they talked about, so there's a video on .NET Conf where they really introduce it, and I think the approach of, it's really the developer first approach, I think. Yeah. I'm speaking for them, but that's what I got out of the video, is that it is hard to build distributed applications as a developer because you start to have to figure out how do you set up this ecosystem on your machine so that you can code effectively. And it gets difficult. And so I've encountered all the same things they talked about, where I would do everything from trying to come up with a way to put settings in a file and just change those settings to actually, in order to do this, I got to go change this line of code, but let me remember not to check it in. Those are all horrible ways to try and cope. Oh, yeah. Because then inevitably you do commit something that you didn't mean to.
And that's why we have tools to check to make sure that you don't do that.
Yeah, right.
It happens.
No, I totally get it. So,
yeah. So I think once we, maybe when things get a little more baked, as they say, we'll come back and take a look at some. I definitely want to come back and take a look at the Aspire stuff.
Yep. Me too. So yeah.
Yeah, and then some other making some of the tools around improvements around the native AOT or the ahead of time compiling, if I recall that being the right acronym, but basically being able to compile your application down before you deploy it into the cloud, and having a much more lightweight set of code that gets moved around, because as can happen in the cloud, things can kind of come up and come back down, or come down. Basically, you need a way of essentially being able to move that code around easily. So that's one other piece that is going to be interesting when it comes to .NET 9. I think the other thing for me is, because I'm having a lot more conversations with customers around this, is around inclusion of artificial intelligence or AI capabilities in the application. So whether it's connecting to some of the stuff that we have in through Azure OpenAI, or being able to connect to multiple, almost like a workflow or an orchestration of artificial intelligence and cognitive services, as we call them, or used to call them. They're all now up under this big umbrella of Azure AI services. Being able to orchestrate those with something like semantic kernel in your C# code is making those easier for .NET developers, is kind of where that .NET 9 section right here around artificial intelligence is going. So that's pretty cool.
Yep.
Something we've not played with here.
Yeah, we haven't. There's a lot to there's so much going on these days. So
yeah,
it's good stuff. But
and I will say, if you are interested, there's this awesome repo out here that's linked into the blog that has this awesome chat application that you could built on Blazor, which is great to see as well. So chance for you to go check that out too if you're interested.
No, I haven't seen that yet. Chat GPT Plus, and you're saying that's built in Blazor. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's.
I haven't seen that yet.
Just because it's got the window here, so just to bring, that's the chat application that they built together, or that was built inside of this app. And up here, somewhere in here, it said it was built with Blazor. Unless I'm getting it wrong, confused with another repo, but I'm pretty sure this was the one. Oh, there we go. Yep, Blazor WebAssembly. I didn't go down far enough.
Cool. All right.
Yeah, so lots of good stuff. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was just saying that's neat. I haven't seen that.
Yeah, so lots of good stuff. Lots of things that I think we're have some interest in talking about. If you have something you'd like us to dive into and see, hey, we'd love your thoughts, because we're always trying to think of what makes for an interesting show, and nothing makes for a more interesting show to our viewers than when the viewers suggest it. So feel free to drop a comment, let us know. With that, I think we're gonna. There you go. Chris is gonna share, and we're gonna head down the path of seeing how this works on his machine.
So this is my PowerShell, which I mainly use because I like having the my posh stuff, command line extension stuff.
Yep.
It finally, I think that was the last straw that finally pulled me out of command prompt, because I was one of those that still opened command prompt. Little stubborn, I know, but I think this support really pushed me out of it. Mm-hmm. So, sorry. Anyways, we do have, this is our fork of the TagzApp repo for folks who are familiar with Jeff Fritz, C# Fritz. And I think, let's see, do I want a branch? Maybe I'm going to want this dev containers branch, right? So first, let's get this clone down. So I'm a little weird. I tend to grab I could learn to use the GitHub CLI, I suppose. That might be interesting. I actually have not used it. And it's not because I don't think it's good. It's just because I became comfortable with the Git command line. So that's... So anyways, here we are, and I'm going to want to, and I'll use I'm even actually starting to find myself using the new switch command. It's a couple years old now, but I would have still, in the old days, done git checkout. So I'm on the dev containers branch, and let's see what that gets us here.
I was going to ask you, what's that start command?
Oh, so this has been in Windows for a very long time, believe it or not.
Okay.
It just starts Explorer. That's it.
Oh. See, I would
And
typically type Explorer, but that's less characters,
yeah,
so that's better.
it's been since Windows 95.
Wow.
And
Okay.
not very many people know about it. And so one reason I'm not as proficient as I used to be, but I know I've talked on this show a little bit about the Disney related project that I was a contractor on many years ago. And when we took those kiosks to the parks, we didn't have mice.
Oh.
So I became very proficient with Windows keyboard. I learned shortcuts that I don't remember anymore, but I could basically without a mouse bring up Explorer, go through all these windows, go back, switch back and forth. And the Explorer was different then.
Mm-hmm.
Pick files, move files, copy files, shift them around. I could open the command prompt, and then if I wanted to actually just see, I mean, don't get me wrong, I could have always done this. But if I
Yeah.
wanted to get a Windows Explorer real quick, I'd hit Start Dot, and boom, that was there. And there was somebody who I worked with who said, "I've never seen anybody use Windows from the keyboard more." I said, "It's a survival. You have no choice, right? I didn't have a mouse."
Right. Yeah. You fall back to what you need.
So you figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
So what do I need to open here? Maybe Visual Studio Code.
Yeah. Let's get you going on Visual Studio Code first.
Okay. So one way I can do that again is also Code Dot. Just get that opened up. And let's see what the Visual Studio does. Oh, look at that. First thing Visual Studio Code noticed is folder contains a dev container configuration, reopen folder to develop in a container. That's cool.
That's pretty awesome.
I didn't do it fast enough, although I could click on the bell again, I think, to see it. Yeah. So on this branch, we already have this dev container folder, the dev container JSON that seems to set this up. It's funny, you're trying to install the dev kit, but it seems like it always.
Yeah, I'll have to check the definition there and make sure I have it right.
Curious.
I mean, if you bring it up, it's in the lower right-hand corner. If you scroll down a little bit.
If I look for I was just looking for it here, because here's the dev kit extension.
Yeah.
Oh, here it is.
Yep, the identifier.
Yeah, I think this is what you have there. Let's see. I think this was it. Yeah, that's it.
.NET Tools. Yeah.
All right. So in any case, I can. Is that what I want to do? Go ahead and just say reopen a container.
What could go wrong? I think it's.
For one thing, I need Docker.
Docker needs to be running.
So
happens all the time.
I don't have Docker Desktop run on startup, not because I figure if I'm turning on my system not to use Docker, like maybe I'm gonna play a game or something else. So there might be some artifacts sitting in here. Oh yeah, some of these might be in here, but that's okay. Should be fine. So is that notification still there? Oh, it's gone. Okay, just wondering. So restart in container, I think is probably, let's see if that's a command prompt thing. Probably. Reopening.
There you go. Reopen.
Okay. So, figuring it out, and then reopened, and then it's in the lower left-hand corner. I can see that it's opening a remote session.
Yep. And if we click the hyperlink there, we'll see all the image gathering that's happening.
All right.
So this is getting those base images onto your Docker environment. So that Docker window that you had, instead of looking at the containers, if you look at the images, you would now have your .NET 8.1. There you go.
Oh, I see. Yeah. Okay. TagzApp dev container app, .NET Postgres dev container app, Postgres.
So now the
Now,
images are there. You can see it's actually building the container in the other. Sorry, you're gonna.
no, that's what I was trying to figure out. Is that so? I see TagzApp dev container is running.
Mm-hmm. And if
So
you
that's
expand
it.
that,
Okay.
because there's two containers, right?
Oh,
So
okay.
it kind of collects them together. I think because they were basically came in from the same Docker Compose.
Mm-hmm.
Is my guess.
The app and then Postgres, as
Yep.
we've seen. Now, let's see. I feel like maybe it did it because
I don't see anything moving. Yeah.
it says the dev container, instead of saying opening, this is sitting here. So I could go to, I think what I can do is like open another bash session.
Mm-hmm.
And here we are, right?
Yes.
So we know .NET is on here. Maybe. Okay.
Yep.
.NET's
The
on here.
101.
Cool. And I'm in the workspace, right? No.
Yep.
I guess I am, but not in the source folder.
Right. You're at that root level basically. So you see the source, you see the scripts.
Is that P-SQL? Is that what it was called? Is that on here?
That should be in there. Yeah.
Oh, it is. Look at that. Okay. And that was in the dev container JSON, or maybe
Yep.
not. That's not. That's was part of the the container for the Postgres, right?
Actually, it should be in the dev container because it's a feature.
Oh, okay. That's right.
So,
we talked about this.
Yep, there you go. So we're using that, which basically is just a wrapper around the installation call to get the P-SQL CLI client on your machine. That's all that is.
Okay.
And then by including the version, because we kind of stepped through it a little bit last time, but you run the sudo apt-get postgres-client-common and then postgres-client- whatever version number. So by supplying that version number, they pop that in and are able to get the right one for you.
So since it asked me, I went ahead and let it install the
Docker
dev container. Okay. So now in the past, we ran and built directly from here, right?
Yes.
So it was .NET, I guess build, and you can pick a project. Was that -P? I forget.
I was using -S.
Okay.
I think for startup.
I don't know if that works with build. I didn't think so. That's .NET Run, isn't it? Like if I do this.
Oh yeah. So that
maybe it'll just do it all. I was hoping it would.
Although couldn't find the project to run. So you're in the source folder. You might have to give it kind of help it along. I think it's like ./web. Or sorry, ./TagzApp web.
Oh, and then it'll figure it out from there.
Yeah. I think it needs a dot. Yep. All right. Now what's it doing?
I mean, I'm being a little. I could always just. I'm being a little stubborn.
Help. Yeah. Or ask Copilot.
Oh, look at how I did that on accident. That's interesting that worked.
Yeah. It's usually pretty case sensitive.
Okay. So in any case, is it because, oh yeah, there's a CS project in here. So I could always do a .NET build from here.
Mm-hmm. Which is fine because that's the one that we want to build anyway.
Now the trick is that the changes that you've made to make this work are on an older version of the app, and Jeff has just updated it to .NET 8 and even moved it over to Blazor.
Right.
So there's some work to do there.
Some rebasing that we need to do to pull that forward.
Yeah. He's changed so much though that might be kind of painful. It might almost be easier to say, well, we know what we want in the dev container. Can we just bring it over? And maybe it might be that simple. Okay, so that all worked. And then we think a .NET run, maybe.
Yeah.
And so this was from cloning, and this is kind of what we wanted. Like there's nothing on my machine. I haven't done this before, but hopefully this is how easy it will be for people. So your application running on 5038 is available. Okay. And there it is.
Perfect.
That's it. And then
now, can we? I am curious if it built the database for you.
Oh, okay. Whoops. I don't want that. I want to go back to Visual Studio Code. So here I am in the terminal. I guess I could open a bash terminal again.
Yeah.
And
do the psql.
Uh-huh.
Space -h. And that's localhost. So
Okay.
-h being the hosting. And then dash capital U. It needs to be capital.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. And then yep, tags.
This is tags as the user role.
Yep. And then -d, small d, which is database, which is Postgres, 1s. Cool. That's it. And now we're in.
Okay.
So we could hit \, dt, I guess for data tables. So it didn't. So all we have in there is the system configuration. So we do need.
That's the scripts, right?
Yeah. So we need to seed our database with the update command, which should run all of the migrations on that database.
Now, do I want the app running or?
I don't think we need it, because what will happen is this will rebuild the app when it goes through that process anyway.
Okay. So I'll shut it down. And again, interesting, like port 5038 was exposed all the way out to localhost so that I could, my own machine, so that I could reach the site, but it's not going to work now.
Right.
The site's dead. So that's okay. Good. Can't reach this page. That's all doing what we expect. Application shut down. I don't going to be able to reuse this terminal. So close it over here, but now we're back in the psql terminal.
Mm-hmm.
But except that I can exit out of here, I suppose, but I could leave it too. Yep. And go create yet another bash terminal. And let's see, there's a scripts folder.
Yeah.
And is it add migration is the first one, or?
Actually, just the update database. That's all we need to run.
Okay.
Yeah. Because if I understand right, in any framework, add migration, and this is the problem I think I was running to when I was trying to do it early on. I thought, we'll just add the migrations to the database, and that's not what it is. You're adding a migration, which means you've changed something in your code first version of the database, and you want to make sure that we've got a way to get those changes into your existing database. So update database is really the thing that gets us there.
I didn't move to scripts first.
Cool.
Okay, so this is running the .NET EF command.
Mm-hmm.
Database update. Okay, cool. Now to run it, do I have to do anything more than just type this?
No, yeah, you should just be able to type update database and hit enter.
Okay. Or did I can't remember if
it's I don't know. I always ran into it was like a dot, and then there you go.
I wasn't sure if I had to do this to execute it. It still didn't work. Why are you saying required file not found? Is it because?
I mean, you're there.
Was I spelling it wrong? It's not a .sh, is it? I didn't think so, because otherwise it would have said so.
I mean, it's got things flowing the. Oh, wait a minute. Location. That's fine, because you've got to go up a level to get to the source directory and then back down to get to those projects. So that's fine. Running it out of scripts, that's kind of where we would expect. Okay.
I mean, I could always.
Oh. Do .NET EF.
Oh.
Okay.
Because I don't have the tool.
You must install or update to run this application. That's what it's looking like, which is interesting. Wait, what was it? What was 802? So do we have EF? Is there a list tools?
Hold on 1 second. I have to. My dog got trapped behind a door, I think.
Oh no. Okay. Let's take a look at this. So .NET EF. It looks like they updated the version to 802. Which I guess is possible, and given that.
All right, I'm back.
Yeah, I mean, looking at this, it looks like the EF is on 802, so it needs 802 of the framework.
That's weird. Like as if it's something just happened this morning, or.
Yeah. But so I guess one of two things. Can we force the 801 install of Vanity Framework for now? Because that's probably the easiest thing to get on board, instead of trying to download the whole SDK.
Wow. Look at that.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's a good question. Oh man, you can't run it at all?
And it's funny because that just happened because we built the container this morning. So I guess if we go to NuGet, we can take a look there, right? Because the package should be listed.
Yeah. I'm just surprised that I guess I don't, and I'm not too familiar with the EF Global tool. So you're saying if I go to NuGet?
Yeah. Wow. There was an 802 that was released 3 days ago. NuGet.org, and then look for .NET-EF, which is if you look at the install line, that's what we're doing. So we could do.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
.NET tool install global .NET-EF -- version 801.
Okay. Yeah.
Oh, there you go. It's already installed. Can we we should be able to uninstall too, right? .NET uninstall, tool uninstall.
Maybe I don't need to say global.
Yeah.
Well, maybe I do. But it doesn't let me do it, and I'm not sure why.
We're in Ubuntu. Do you need to suit it? Is there an elevation?
I suppose that's an interesting possibility.
Sudo command find. So other way to do this is let's go back and modify, because we probably should have that in there anyway. Let's modify the Docker compose, because I think that's where the path is at the top. No, that's the Docker file itself. Because there's a run command. There you go. Run command on line 4.
Right. We should add
the version 801.
Which makes sense, I guess, long term.
Oh, sure.
So we kind of found something we should be
bug.
All right. So if I save that, now the question is, I need to exit the container, restart the container.
So if you save that,
okay,
I'm giving a pregnant pause here because I've seen for certain files, the dev container will say, "Hey, do you want to rebuild the dev containers?" And that's kind of what you want to do. So if it's since it is not prompting us, let's go ahead and.
What was kind of nice is when I just clicked on this, like it's a button.
Yeah,
I got a bunch of options, so that was nice.
Relevant
so let's
container
try.
Stuff.
Should I try rebuild container?
Yep.
Okay. All right. So that was a little bit of a learning experience.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
So when we create this container, we want to lock in. Since an SDK is locked in to the container itself, we're also going to want to lock in the tooling.
Yep.
Okay. That's good to know, because otherwise it went ahead and it did what it said, what we asked. I just went and installed the latest stable. What's the problem?
Yeah.
It's like, well, and so that actually went pretty quick. And then, of course, let that do its thing, because otherwise it'll keep complaining. So now if I take a look over here, just so it looks like it did not restart the DB, which kind of makes sense. Restarted the dev container. That's just barely happened. So now that I've done all that,
let's go back to scripts folder, right?
Let's see. Yeah. Let's see. I want source, and then it was scripts.
Actually,
or was it just scripts?
Just scripts.
Okay. Did I really not?
Scripts and source are siblings. They're at the same level.
Didn't actually go back.
Cool.
And required file not found. Okay. So what's it saying? No, it's
there.
Okay. It's trying to go backwards. I'm just going to copy this command line and see.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, the command line that it wanted to run is working.
Right.
So it must be something about how I'm trying to run the script.
Yeah.
That's my guess anyway.
I would agree.
What does this one mean? Oh, the ports that are forwarded. I'm just looking at what Visual Studio Code is showing me here. So the port forwarded. I was wondering, what is that? Okay, so that's showing me what ports are forwarded, and then we know that we're in the container. What branch we're on. I like that when it says no problems. That's good. Build succeeded. Applying the migration, and then we're back at the command line. Done. So earlier, we used pSQL to see if these tables were set up. And pSQL is the Postgres client. And what was it? It was something. It was like DT or something like that.
Well, we need to. Do you still have that window open?
I have to open.
Open a new one?
No, not anymore, because we restarted the container.
Okay.
So
so
pSQL -h localhost, right?
Yep.
and then -u, and the user role name was tags. Is that what that means, or is that not what that means?
That is what that means. Yep.
Okay. And then the database. So when we say database here, this is the name of the database in the server.
Yes, and those are things that we defined in the Docker file. Is Docker file? Scroll down the bottom. No. Then it must be in the compose. Yep, right there. So that's where we've defined those values.
Okay. All right. So we're in the PostgreSQL client, and then you gave me a command that was like DT or something like that.
Exactly.
And those are all the tables you were expecting earlier. First, we just saw this system config, but now we've got all this stuff. And then EF has got its migration history in here.
Yep.
So, okay, cool. Awesome. All right. So that was a long way to where we wanted to go. And now we should be able to run this, we think. So I know I was like being stubborn last time, and watch, I'm going to be stubborn again. Let's see if it'll run from here. Yeah, see, it doesn't like that. I'm sure you were doing this from a folder, so I thought like, oh, I'll be cool and do it too, but clearly I don't. Or it's too early on a Friday, one of the two. Application is running. I can even click open browser from here. And so we're back to here. This is where we were before.
Yep.
But previously the app ran, but it didn't blow up because it didn't find the expected database tables. But now it should be working.
Yeah, definitely. And I'll be honest, the thing that we don't have in here is any data. Now, I know Jeff's been playing around with, not playing around with, but enhancing TagzApp so that I believe it seeds with some data. And he also has the connections up. So we could focus a little bit on maybe enabling one of those connectors, or we can focus on, hey, how do we get his project, our dev containers into his project, that latest that he has.
Right.
I guess for the 30 minutes we got left, those are kind of a couple options, a couple different directions we can go down.
Well, so I know he's done some work to enable this development mode, but I actually don't know how you use it. So let's see if we can get our changes onto what his latest looks like. So the way I'm going to do that is I can leave the container running, I think. And now I'm back on my machine in PowerShell, where I know, like, I could just double check, like, I'm on git status. We modified the Docker file. That's not a huge deal. I'm not super concerned about that right now. But my current remote is from your, it's basically from your fork.
Yep.
So what I want to do, or what I can do, there's probably many things I can do here. But I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go, oh, wow, this is forked a couple times. Is the Fritz and Friends the one that we want?
No, actually, the one from C# Fritz is the one that.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add this as a second remote.
Okay.
And I'll do that. The easiest way for me to do that, I mean, there's a lot of ways I could have done it, is I just want, I want the remote location. So I'm going to copy this to the clipboard, head back out to Git, and say git remote add, and we'll call this one C# Fritz. It's because it's his remote. And so I've added it, and we'll see what that looks like. Git remote -v shows me with 2 remotes.
Yep.
And so what's kind of nice now is now I can, I mean, I could use command line to do this, but this is where I tend to switch over to a visual tool. If you have your git log set up, or you have an alias set up that shows a pretty log, you could do a lot of this stay in command line too.
Yeah, I think
So,
there's also a Git lens,
oh
which
yeah,
can help with that tree.
there's Git lens in Visual Studio Code, which I don't think is installed right now, but you're right, I could do that too. A lot of people who know us know that this has been my tool of choice for a while. So, in any case, we don't. That's interesting that I didn't get. Oh, you know why? Because I haven't. So this is a good lesson. Is I have my local branches. When I first cloned, I got main because it's the default, and then I switched to dev containers.
Mm-hmm.
I can view all the branches from the Rich Ross repo, but I never pulled from C# Fritz.
No.
I actually I shouldn't say pulled. I never fetched.
Okay.
I never fetched. So now, and one of the things I have done, which is unusual for a lot of people's tools fetch like all the time. Git
Yes.
Kraken like fetches like, I don't know, it's just sitting there fetching. I tend to turn that off, but I tend to do it from the standpoint, like a teaching standpoint, is so people understand what the fetch command does. Because if it auto fetches, then it just works.
Right.
So I'm going to say git fetch, and I'm wondering if this is where I'm a little rusty. If I want to say that I want to fetch from a remote, yeah, let me go ahead and say the -- all to fetch all remotes. I think there's a way for me to say that I only want to fetch from one remote, but let me just do this. There it is, because that's what I wanted to see. I wanted to see that it specifically went through and said I fetched C# Fritz, which is what do I remember how to? Oh, I think I have to do Control-2 to
Control Shift.
Yeah, there we go.
That's
what I wanted to see.
Okay.
And so what has happened now is my Git repository on this machine now also has all the commits from that C# Fritz repository. So I'm going to see those branches. And again, I come back here and
then can
there
you
it is, popped up.
So through here, can you see which is because there's a main branch, but there's also the fix _ Blazor migrate Blazor branch. And I believe that was the one he was using, was the latter one.
Right. So so fix migrate Blazor from your repo. That's interesting. Here's why is it not seems to be struggling for some reason, and I don't know why. I want to see fix migrate. It is. Here's fix migrate Blazor from Jeff. And the way I know is there's a couple ways that I know. It says so right there. It says C# Fritz's fix migrate Blazor. But then I get Jeff's picture because one of the things Git Kraken tries to do is imports your GitHub profile pic. So like I can see Rich there. I can see Jeff there. So this is where he is right now. He's on fix migrate Blazor. You added the dev container functionality here. What's really interesting here is trying to figure out your common ancestor is a little ways back. This is probably the common ancestor, which actually that's not so bad because it turns out that your main is pointing the same as, so he hasn't committed to main in a while.
Yeah, that's exactly
right. This actually might work out better than we think, because I will just tell you, normally I would look at a tree like this and say, okay, this might be fun because look at all the changes that have happened. There's got to be some conflict somewhere, but there's two things helping us here. Number one, the dev container folder and stuff is net new to the project.
Yep.
So no matter what Jeff has done, Git is going to look at it as additive, except for the one code change I think you had to make. But we'll see what it thinks about that too.
Yep.
The other is your common ancestor is still it's still the place where Jeff is sitting on main, where you're sitting on main, where my local repository is sitting on main. So everybody's main is pointing to the same commit way back from December 12th. That's over here.
Yeah.
So everybody's is pointing there. So it would be really interesting. I wonder what happened. I do have this one change we made to the Docker file, which we probably want, right?
Yeah.
We probably want this. So what I'm going to do is I can do this from within Git Kraken, but instead I'm going to go do one better. Here's the question now. Do you want to pull requests to your repo?
Yes.
Or should I fork this yet again?
I'm actually in the process of adding you to the repository as a committer.
Well, that could work too, and then I would just commit normally.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's one way to handle it. And so that means what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and get that change in. So I've got git status. Remember, I'm working in my dev containers branch, which only exists on my machine. After I make these changes, I haven't pushed them anywhere yet. So I'm going to say git add, and I'm even going to be good and put the file in there. Oh, I almost did. There we go. I came across an article again the other day. I don't know how many times that like stop using git add dot, and so I said like, okay, I'll be good. We'll have to go into that one of these days.
I was just going to ask you, what's the deal around because that's what I do. I mean, unless I know.
Everybody does. Everybody does. Yeah. Everybody. So when people complain about don't use git add with the dot, is the reason is because git add dot, it does more than just stage your modifications. It stages anything you've added, it stages modifications, and then there's something it doesn't do that I think is annoying, and I'm trying to remember what it is. I can't remember if it's that it won't stage files you've deleted, or maybe there's something that it does that can trip people up because they assume that like git add dot stages all my changes. And it turns out that's actually not true. There's a different switch, and I don't remember what it is. Although maybe we can figure it out. We are live, right?
Yeah.
There's a different switch that stages the way that does what you expect. And it might be this one. It might be -A, which is update the index not only where the working tree has a file matching, but also where the index already has an entry. So this adds, modifies, and removes index trees. So I think deletions. I think that's what that means. This is fancy speak for removing files in your working directory that we're removing entries that you've removed from your working directory. Because I think if you just do an add dot, it won't remove files. I think that's true.
Okay.
Oh, in fact, look, it says it right here. The git add command will not add. No, that's just ignored files. That's ignored files. So there's we could go find some blog posts, I'm sure. Oh, actually, you know what? I'm sorry. When that git add came up,
oh, it went the other way.
I was on the other screen and I didn't even notice, people. I'm really apologize. So I was looking. This is actually what I was reading off to you all. Was right here. Git. You could do -- all. You could do --A. And then, so again, I apologize that I read that to myself. So anyways, long story short, that is staged. Now it's committable. I think I'm just going to go ahead and do this and see if I get an editor. I did. Cool. So what did you want me to, what were you saying?
So you have a pending invite, I guess. Again, you'll probably see it in whatever email.
That's probably true. That's probably true. That I have to go accept the invite to the repo. Yeah, look at that. For a second, I said, like, is it going to make me log into GitHub? Which would have been okay, I suppose, except. Okay, so what are we doing? We are at locking.net EF tool to 8.0.101 version. This will match the SDK in the dev specified in the dev container. All right, close this. Should finish the commit. Okay, so now that I finished the commit, I'm going to come back here. I know it's weird that I switch back and forth between, and now I got my little picture, and I can see my commit with the Docker file. Everything's there. I'm really happy with that. So what I should be able to do is now commit, and I can now push up to the Rich Ross repository.
Right.
And there's a couple ways I can do that, but one of the things I'm going to do real quick is just double check that my default. So I think I want to say, let's see, I think I want to say git push origin, because origin is the default name that Git gives your remotes. And since I cloned from Rich Ross, that's what it's called. So if I say git push origin, that should do what I want. And we'll double check by popping over here. And sure enough, we now see some synchronicity here. That little laptop looking picture means my local branch, and your picture means that's what your branch is reporting. I suppose if I head over to GitHub, we will see that now. Except let's get my email off of there. And I have to, I think I have to refresh this. And go to the dev. Yeah, recent pushes 33 seconds ago. And so there it is. All right. So we've locked the .NET EF tool. It remains an open question as to whether we should test this again instead of creating a pull request. But why don't we just see how a rebase looks?
Okay.
So what I'm going to do, you don't have to do this necessarily, I think, but well, I'm trying to think of what's the best way to do this. For people that are maybe afraid of rebases, I could always create a branch here just to like lock that down. Basically to have a branch pointing to this commit so that it doesn't quote unquote go away. But that shouldn't happen because your origin branch is pointing to it anyway.
Right.
So he's on fix migrate Blazor. And we know those both came from main. So what I'm wondering is, can I do git rebase? And here's where it could get interesting. I may have to specify C#Fritz/git. I may have to specify the branch like in a more I don't know if the word I want to use, complete. But let's see. Let's see if that works. Okay, so there's probably a conflict that I expected. And yes, it is exactly where I expected it to be.
And that is?
Because we made the change to TagzApp context, right?
Sure.
So I actually expected this conflict because you showed that you had to change this. And what Git is doing is Git is looking at your change and it's saying, but Jeff kept on working with this file. So only one of you can be right, is what it's saying. Now, I could fix the conflict any number of ways. I could go fix it like right straight in the file. Here's a place where it's kind of nice to use tools. So let's go ahead and say Git Kraken's already has a view conflict spot for me. So if I say view conflict, did it do it? That didn't do it. Oh, I didn't mean to stage that. Dang it. I wanted to look at the conflict. Okay, so I kind of made a mess of it. Since I staged it, I think I've confused the heck out of Git Kraken. And so this is actually what files look like when Git modifies them, is it puts these little placeholders in for you to resolve the conflict from. And then what you do is you commit it and it's like, oh, I guess that's what you wanted. So now the problem is I think we have to see what the difference is between the two files. And
are you able to roll this back somehow?
Well, we can see the difference. The difference is that you did this. You had this with very little bit, right? And it looks like what it's telling us is it's saying, hey, a lot more has happened since. Oh, no, is it the other way around? His file is very bare. And this is your file that you added this stuff.
Yep.
And you did this primarily because
it's mainly comes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Mainly comes down to line 23
okay.
and line 27. using a typed instance of DB context options versus a generic or untyped version. And that was an error that .NET Framework, Entity Framework gave me.
Yeah.
When I tried to add migration, do updates, whatever, because it was saying there are multiple DB contexts here, and we need to be specific around the DB context options that we use in this class.
Huh. I wonder if he gets around that with, you know how that file is it, or except you had this problem anyway, right? Is like this file specifies the context?
Yes.
Do you think that's how he gets around it, or it still did this for you anyway?
It still did that for me anyway.
Okay. So we're saying that we think this change has to be made. And the question, yeah.
Definitely to run in the container.
Okay.
I mean,
right.
I suppose we could test and see if we run this in Visual Studio talking to a local container, which is how Jeff, I think, is configured to run.
What's the file name again? It's in the Postgres project, TagzApp. And I actually did this to myself because I clicked buttons. It's TagzApp.
Storage
Postgres.
Postgres.
And it was this file here. Nope, sorry. This file.
Yep.
Oh, okay. So Visual Studio Code is kicking in and saying, hey, let me help with this. Because it recognizes the little Git markings. A lot of people may not know this if you've only used visual tools. So remember, Git is a 100% file-based, text-based product. It doesn't know about any of these visual tooling. In fact, the visual tooling may be an affront to Linus's conscience. I don't know. So what happens is that Git actually marks the file up with these notations to tell you, here's the current, and then here's what was on this commit. And it's asking you to fix it. It's just saying, I don't care what you do. In fact, you could change all this code however you wanted. Git doesn't care. It just wants you to tell it, what am I supposed to do?
Right. Because it'll run through and do another sanity check either way, right?
No. It's going to accept what you say. I could break this code. Okay. I could break this code and have it just return a string that says, with a link to the Rick Astley video on YouTube. I could do that if I wanted, and then I could accept it and commit it. All Git wants you to do, this is what Git really wants you to do. Git just wants you to fix the file to your satisfaction and commit that. That's all it's asking for, because it's going to create a commit with your fix.
Yeah.
But it puts this notation in, and what this notation is it's picked up by tooling like this, and the tooling looks at it and says, well, I know that Git is telling me, and so I can say I accept the change, accept the incoming change, accept both changes, compare the changes. I could do whatever I want. So what we really want to say is we don't want this, right? You're saying your code is what we need.
Yes.
So I can manually do this. I don't even have to pay attention to what the tooling wanted me to do. So I manually took your change. I could have used the tooling, but this is kind of like, here's how Git really works.
Right.
So I saved that. I saved that file. The little dot went away and became an X. If I head out to Git Kraken sees I've got an unstaged change. If we go ask Git what's going on, Git is saying, hold on a second, I'm in the middle of something. I'm stuck on this particular change. So let's ask Git what it thinks is going on. I'm going to say Git status, because we're in the middle of a rebase right now. And Git says, okay. It says, you're in the middle of a rebase. I'm on a particular commit. I've done a couple things. I've added some other commits, fine. But now I'm trying to take your locking .NET commit, and I had a problem. So what I'm going to do is if you want me to, well, I've got to stage it. You can stage the merged file, the conflicted file, which I'm going to do. I'm going to stage that. I'm going to say git add. And then because I'm going to be a little lazy, I'm going to copy this and paste it. And then I'll do git status again just to check. Everything's green. So now what I'm actually doing when I resolve a merge conflict is I'm actually adding a new commit that resolves the problem. Because remember, every commit in Git is immutable. You commit and it's over.
Right.
So the only way to fix when Git is saying, I have a commit here and a commit here, and I couldn't bring them together, what do I do? We've now told it what to do. So it's now going to create a new commit on top of the two that were conflicted, and it will be the new child for both parents. And as far as it's concerned, you've solved the problem. It doesn't know what you did. It also doesn't care what you did. It's just, thanks for solving the problem. Right. So we're going to say, that we resolved. I don't know that you actually have to say resolved conflict, but a lot of people like to do this by using typed DB context. Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So we'll take that. Wait,
you also might have quotes.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. Thank you very much. Git is like, what are you talking? What are all those command line parameters? Okay. So done all that. I can do git status again. And it says, okay, resolve the conflict. Great. And now I could say git rebase continue. So they're like, once you're satisfied with your changes, then I'll continue the rebase. But remember, Git is trusting me. Mm-hmm. Whatever I did, it takes. And this is where I think Git sometimes confuses people. Successfully rebased and updated refs. Doesn't that sound wonderful? And now dev containers is 99 commits ahead and 3 commits behind. It's like a big old mess. Let's take a look at what that looks like visually. So visually, what I now have is I have a dev containers branch. Your dev containers branch points to your line of work.
Mm-hmm.
My dev containers branch now has the resolved conflict, what I did, which was to lock the EF tool, what you did to add the dev container files, and it is now a direct descendant of Jeff's work. So Jeff could cleanly take this. In fact, to make it a little visually easier to look at, I'm going to remove your, I can't even see your remote anymore, just so that visually we can see we have a nice clean pull request that we're offering to Jeff here.
Nice.
Right. We're right on top of your work. Now, he's going to have to think about this type DB context. He may like it, he may not. And I think what we do is we put in a comment that says that if for some reason we shouldn't be doing this, we're happy to update. We'll update the pull request.
Right.
Because I wouldn't want to put Jeff in a situation where then he tries to merge on top and it becomes messy.
Yep.
So we're in a pretty good spot where I could then send this your way. But because I rebased, I have to do a force push because your particular
commit tree.
Yeah, your tree is different, which that's something I'm okay with. People get really nervous about it. I think really the trick is that on your end, you have to say, well, what do I do next? Right.
Right.
So that's kind of your call. I could even put it on a different branch if you wanted, if you think that's easier. I could do that too.
I don't have a problem with the force commit because what you did there, it's only a force commit because you're rebased against Jeff's changes, not my branch or not my tree.
Yeah, the problem is that you can see now that your tree is going down this path.
Yeah.
And now we have a straight line from Jeff. So the problem is that Git is going to look, if you say that you want to pull this, then Git is going to say, well, I have to merge this. And then that's going to create another merge commit. And that's where people get they get upset. Like, I don't understand what happened. So what you would do instead is you would reset. You would do like a reset hard to origin dev containers. And it would just pick this up, pick up your little sticky here and move. I call them sticky notes and move it right there. And that would be the end of it.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
Or the other thing I could do is I could put it on a different branch and then you would just switch to that branch and abandon the branch that you're on. But let's do this. And I want to make sure that I'm saying it's origin, although I can't push to Jeff anyway, so that would blow up. And so it did it. it did it, forced update. And now
So
you're going to
go back
see
and look
that
at the tree. Yeah.
it's all very, very clean for me, but your world, your local branch is still pointing, to wherever that other location was, which now kind of disappeared for me.
But I should be able to git fetch.
So git fetch will at least show you what changed. You're not going to be able to cleanly merge, at least not. A lot of people just like to say git pull, but you'll do a git fetch, and then you would probably say git reset origin / dev containers -- hard, and it would be. And what you're telling Git is, I want you to take my local and just match that thing. I trust it. It's what I want. Do it.
Okay.
So.
Gotcha. Okay.
So we got an interesting comment here. Git is trusting you.
From who?
I'm trusting you, from Jeff. So
hello, Jeff.
But here's the thing that I like about it. Now, from Jeff's point of view, let me tell you what I like about it. If I'm Jeff, I look at this commit tree and I say, oh, what a nice, clean addition to my work. Instead of what often happens is, here's my work and here's yours, and yours is going off and doing all this crazy stuff. What happened? I don't know. And right. And so this is what we do a lot as maintainers. We go and we just, what did GitHub say? Oh, GitHub took the merge. And then you find out you actually have problems. So what in some ways, I believe this is actually a little more respectful to the maintainer. That is a personal belief. I am not trying to tell all of you that you should become like a Git rebase wizard, but I like it because I think for the maintainer, I like to call it time traveling. By rebasing, what I've done is it's as if we did this morning.
Yeah.
We took Jeff's code this morning. We added these 3 commits, and it's like, wow, you guys really worked. You guys did all that this morning. And it's like, well, we had a time machine.
Right.
This will be interesting. I'm really curious what Jeff thinks about this, because I remember when you were having trouble with this and making it typed worked, and it's like, do we really have to do this? I don't know.
Yeah.
And if we find out that we don't, then my suggestion to Jeff would be, well, we don't want to take the pull request. Let us fix it up, and we'll even make it nice and pretty again so that it's nice and cleanly sitting on top of your latest work, and it'll be an easy merge. So that's kind of my take on all this.
Yeah. Okay. That all makes sense to me.
Yeah.
So.
It seems like a lot. I know everybody sees that, and then they say the next time you try to do it yourself, you go, wait, what did Chris do again?
So, exactly. We'll be getting conversation happening around it.
It's the kind of thing you have to practice. You have to practice using rebase to do stuff like that. And also I tend to use rebase also to squash some commits. I don't go crazy with it. I don't have a philosophy that I should only give you 1 commit. Like, that's not the point. Right. The philosophy that I have is more of, I want the commits that you see from me to be very readable. I want the comments to be great. And I want you to be able to read the story like a book. Like, okay, I can tell that you did this, then you did this, then you did this. But if there's a commit in there where I went back on myself, where like I tried something and no, that's not what I want to do, so let me commit over top of it, I will squash those out.
Sure.
Because my take is like, you don't need to see my U-turn. Mm-hmm. I want you to see how I got to what I'm offering you. But you don't have to see where I change course or whatever. Like, that's not important to you. In fact, it might just be more confusing.
Right. It's not relevant to the story.
Yeah. So yeah, that's a great term. I do think of a pull request as a story, and I want it to be something useful to the maintainer. So that's why I went through. I mean, we spent like 25 minutes figuring out how to do that, maybe more. But to me, I felt like, hey, that's cool. So what Definitely. I don't know how to do is we certainly know that we're in our container here. We know we can run the app. In fact, it's running right now. Mm-hmm. We weren't sure how to do much more, but we do know that the tables are built and we think it's working. So
yeah, I I think that's probably what I would, with the long weekend, is, wire up a couple of providers and just kind of test it out and kick the tires on it and see it, make sure we're all good before we do the final pull request.
I think the reason we think it's working is because we don't know how to use the app well enough to test it as thoroughly as we should. Quite frankly, we should probably run the unit tests, but hey,
well, I think it was a comment, because I did comment on the issue that we're running against in Jeff's repo about this, and he made a comment that the web app or the web tests, I think, are being updated. So at this point, there was not it would not be helpful to run them. But
okay.
They're working.
And here's an interesting point. Like today, Jeff's going to merge the Blazor version with a container tag, and what's really interesting is theoretically we could rebase on top of that, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, you don't have to. I do admit there's a point where you've handed off your present.
Yeah.
And if the committer moves ahead a little bit, it shouldn't be too bad. You can kind of go a little too nuts. A commit graph that's going straight and then has a little diversion and then comes back is pretty easy to follow. It's just that when your pull request offers a curve and then a curve and then a curve back and then a curve and then, maybe even better, you pulled from main and then did some work and then some work and then some work. And then maybe you pulled from main again because you kept saying to yourself, I want to get the latest. I tend to instead rebate. I tend to time travel.
Yeah.
So that way my gift to the committer is a cleaner look instead of, wow, I'm not even sure what you did. And worse, did you accidentally recommit a bug that I squashed? I don't know. So that's me. I'll get off my soapbox.
It is all good. That is awesome. So we got ourselves to a good spot.
Yeah.
I see this as an absolute win.
Right? So so I think we're in a really good spot. We got a little bit of cleanup to do to get it over to a pull request so that Jeff can bring it in. And that's a show.
Yeah. And so it turns out, we had a TagzApp dev container show that turned into another one of Chris's Git lectures. So thank you all for sticking around for that. And maybe we'll mark it in the chapter so people can skip that part. But hopefully you learned something. And even being an open source committer, if you're interested in committing to open source, I really do think and this is me, I know it's getting on a soapbox, but learn how to use Git effectively so that the pull requests you make to the committer are easier for them to accept. They will thank you. I mean, I am not an open source committer really, but I can only imagine how when you're taking that time to merge code in, how you're constantly changing headspace. Like, hold on, I got to switch context to whatever this person is doing. And anything you can do to tell the story in an easier way, I'm sure helps. So it's just something I try. I try to do it at work too. Tell the story, right?
Definitely. Yeah.
But a little bit past 9. But thank you all for sticking around, and hopefully we haven't made you late for your morning stand-up. And it turns out I'm not late for mine. We're not having it at 9 today. Hopefully you're not late for yours, Rich. But
it's a quiet Friday, so I got some time this morning.
So
awesome.
Thanks everybody for joining us.
Yeah, and feel free to, if you're watching in the future on YouTube, where all of our archives are running over at the youtube.com/thedevtalkshow. Leave us a comment. Leave us some kind of a emoji, some kind of engagement. Let us know you're out there watching, because that helps us. And if you are not subscribed, definitely want you to subscribe. What we really want you to do, though, is we're trying to get our subscriptions up on the LinkedIn page so we can start to broadcast to there directly instead of going through Chris. So if you wouldn't mind going over to LinkedIn.
I've got it here, yeah.
Oh, cool. Yep. So Chris will post that in there and join the community there. That would be awesome. And so with that, we're going to probably do a show. I think our next show up, we're looking at Tuesday to kind of come back and we're not sure what we're talking about, but we're going to come back on Tuesday, and we've got some ideas. We were talking about them this morning, so we'll have some cool stuff to show. But for that, and for my co-host Chris Gomez, thanks for watching Dev Talk Show. We'll see you soon.